Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. This week, we're going to talk about three things you can do to have your best workshop ever. A little bit about workshops first, where they came from, and then we'll get into it. But workshops are not new. I ran my first workshop back in 2000. It was at Bishop McDevitt High School, which is the school here in Harrisburg where if you're a football fan, NFL fan, Ricky Waters and LaShawn McCoy both graduated from the same high school. That's where I was. It was a shoulder workshop with the football team, and I'm still friends with some of the guys that were in the room there back when they were 16 years old at the time. Now they're well into their 40s with teenagers of their own playing at the high school and everything else. So great to see that come full circle. But even back as far as 2000, I was nowhere near the first person to ever do workshops. When I really got into this in the early 2000s, when within the physical therapy industry, when we could start marketing direct to the consumer, this was a unique offering from everything else that I had seen done. And I wanted to lead with education and provide valuable information. Where did workshops come from? The earliest workshop that I can find is in the 1860s. It was by Elizabeth Longfellow. She was the first female physician in the United States. And by law, or by the guidelines that existed at the time for physicians, she was not allowed to advertise her services. However, and just think about how insane that is, where a podiatrist can't advertise that they specialize in something related to the feet, like plantar fasciitis or bunions or whatever it might be, right? That physicians at one point in this country could not advertise their services. What she did to circumvent that is she started having educational lectures. And you can still find these, exactly what she was doing, but they were well attended. She was in Manhattan at the time, and I believe the population of Manhattan was less than 100,000 people. I think it was 25,000 people, something like that. So it wasn't the metropolis 7 or 8 million people that it is today. And she went on to create and build a very successful practices based on these educational lectures. So fast forward to today. By this point, I've done over 250 workshops myself. Our private practice, we run 12 of these every month internally. And also with Breakthrough, we're working with 200 plus practice locations all over the US. We've taught this to over 2,000 practices. And as I was sharing with John Kelly, who's on this call right before we started, I've had the opportunity to watch a lot of workshops as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about pitfalls, but I'll keep it to three big points. And here are the three big points. The first thing we're going to talk about is the most important one, and it's how you end your workshop. So the last 5 or 10 minutes. And if I were to practice on any one thing, if you've never done a workshop before, or you dramatically want to improve an existing workshop, this is the easiest fix. And we'll talk through that. But it's the close. It's how you close your workshop last 5 or 10 minutes. Number two is a simple framework for engagement. A good workshop, when I'm watching them, the presenter and the audience members, they're interacting. It's a two-way conversation. The worst ones that I see are where a clinician is nervous. They have the projector out and they read off the slides the entire time, and there's zero engagement with the audience members. So lots of room for improvement there. We'll talk through some finer points on that. The third one is what actually happens before the workshop is one of the most important parts. When you walk into the room, you want everybody, and when this is done the right way, you want everybody to recognize and acknowledge you or the clinician that you are, the potential help that you can provide that person. And there are some things that we can do there to have the audience be very receptive to your message before you even walk into the room. And we'll talk about that. So let's take a deeper dive here. Number one, the close. So we always want a call to action. Even if we're out speaking in the community, we want, so for example, if I'm out and I'm speaking at an organization and they're hosting me, so their employees are in the room or their customers are in the room, I'm going to make sure I can do a close that is permitted by them, an offer of an appointment or an offer of more information. When it's in-house, we get to determine what that call to action looks like. The easiest one is go straight to an appointment. For years, when I started teaching this at Breakthrough and working with other practices 10, 12 years ago, we were going to a free screen. Today, within the most successful practices that I know, they drive straight to an eval, a paid appointment, first appointment. Yeah. So, and then we use the free screen as a catch-all. For example, just last week, we had a workshop at our Shrewsbury clinic. I believe 12 or 14 people scheduled, and we had one free screen out of that. So the majority of the people, 90% plus, went straight to an eval. We only had one person that we used the free screen with. And it was, in that case, it was an insurance issue, and they had some clarification that they wanted beforehand before scheduling an appointment. So that close needs to be crisp. Now, here are a couple of the pitfalls that I see in the close. One is we have the setup, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But the setup for the last 5 or 10 minutes is fairly important. So if we go through, we share our information, we're highly engaging. We have two-way conversation going on with the majority of the audience members. People are ready to schedule. There is a simple close that I've seen happen now quite a few times that works the best. And then I've seen a whole bunch of other variations of this that get us in trouble. So one of the pitfalls is when we get to the close, so the room is engaged, you've shared your 2 or 3 really big points around whatever the topic is. For example, if it's rotator cuff or pelvic floor, you've shared the meat of the information that you're going to share. Now it comes time to offer an appointment. And what I'll see happen is the first one is asking, does anybody have any questions? That is horrible. That has you've just answered questions for 45 minutes to an hour, and now all of a sudden, all of the authority, celebrity expertise that you've built up, you've defrayed that, because the person asking questions is the person in power in just about any situation in life. So to now just throw that onto your audience, you've lost a lot of momentum. That's mistake number one. Big pitfall number two that I see is in the presentation is asking for feedback. Somehow, I'm not sure where this worked in, but it almost became part of our processes here at Breakthrough. I think it is a complete distraction. There is a time and place to ask for feedback. It is not right before you're going to offer an appointment. So you can use it in the follow-up. If I host a workshop and Samantha is in the room and she chooses not to schedule an appointment, I can follow up later, 2 or 3 days later, maybe even a week later, and say, hey, Samantha, saw you didn't schedule. By the way, I'm constantly striving to make these workshops more valuable. Are there 1 or 2 things that you found most valuable, or what would you change? Then you can go to the ask for feedback. I would not do it in the room, especially right before you're about to offer an appointment. So there are 2 big mistakes. The third one that I'll throw in there is the use of the word if. And I wouldn't recommend using if in the exam room. I wouldn't recommend using it before the workshop happens, if you're doing confirmation calls or anything like that before people actually show up in the room. And I definitely wouldn't use it in the presentation. So if you go back and watch yourself and you have the courage to record your own workshop, go back to watch it, and then go to the last 5 or 10 minutes as you're making your offer and see if you ever say the word if. And then the way that you can improve that is just use the word when the next time you do this. So if you want to schedule an appointment, here's what to do. Follow Megan to the back of the room and she's going to get you set up, right? So that's what most clinicians will say. A little bit better way to improve that is to say, when you want to schedule an appointment, here's what you're going to do. You're going to follow Megan and go back to the back of the room and schedule your appointment. Very subtle difference, makes a huge difference in terms of the conversion rate when we're going back and watching those recordings. The The close. The close that's working the best is this. And I want to tell a little story here. During, I think this was in late 2020, early 2021, we had a clinician in a new clinic who, in her first 4 workshops, the clinical director, 100% of the people in the room scheduled an eval, a first appointment, and it was paid. So no free screens. And I was talking with our marketing team. We meet every week on a Wednesday morning. I said, her name is Jan Grove. What is Jan doing different that we've never seen before? And the marketing team was adamant, 4 different marketers. Jan is just following the script, everything you've ever taught. That's exactly what she's doing. And I said, please, can we take a look at this? Let's get a recording and we'll go through it. So we get the recording, we get to the end of the workshop, and here's what Jan did. Number one is I used to do the demonstration earlier in the workshop. Now we teach doing the demo at the end. A demonstration is where, for example, if you're doing a shoulder pain workshop, you could have everybody in the room raise their right arm up. You and I know that as scaption or flexion. Raise their left arm up, reach behind their back with their right arm, reach behind their back with their left arm. And typically what we're doing there, if you do nothing else, is just showing that somebody in the room has a dramatic difference, a huge disparity between their right and their left side. If you want to take it more advanced, and if it's compliant with your practice act, I will typically cherry pick and try to we call it a 5-minute miracle. We don't do that with the audience. We joke around about that internally as the clinicians, but I'm typically looking for somebody who has same side cervical rotation limitation, side bending limitation, and shoulder pain on that side.
Before we continue with this episode, here's a word about our course, Profitability Under Pressure.
How does your practice's profitability today compare to what it was back in 2019? Is it keeping pace with inflation? Hey, this is Chad Madden here. I want to introduce you to the Profitability Under Pressure program. This is a 90-day masterclass designed to help you build a robust financial system for your practice. Most owners aim to improve revenue per visit and enhance their bottom line. However, many are facing declining reimbursements and rising operational costs, making it challenging to maintain financial health. The Profitability Under Pressure program consolidates the best practices currently working for practice owners into one comprehensive system. This program will help you boost profit margins, reclaim your time, gain time freedom, and assist more people in your community and leave a bigger impact. You'll learn how to conduct a profit leak audit, create a profit plan, and use various levers to increase revenue. Additionally, you'll get a 90-day trial of our patient demand software and access to our exclusive Inside Circle community. Here you can connect with other like-minded practice owners who are navigating similar challenges and finding solutions. Don't just take our word for it. Hear from owners like Lance Gross, who added $1.1 million to his bottom line, Peg Gray, who got her finances under control, and Jeff Gersh, who saved time with our cheat sheet for increasing profitability. Don't miss this opportunity. Apply today for the Profitability Under Pressure program and start increasing your profits by $10,000 or more within just 90 days of implementation, guaranteed. Secure a more stable financial future for your practice. Click below and apply now to join the ranks of successful physical therapy private practice owners who transform their businesses with our program. Apply today.
Thank you for listening this far. Now back to the episode.
So I said Samantha earlier. So Samantha's our audience attendee, and she has trouble turning her head to the right, side bending to the right with her cervical spine, and also has limitations in moving her right shoulder. I'm going to guess that there's a pretty good chance that she has a first rib issue, right? And so we bring Samantha up, and I will do first rib mobilization. I mean, there's some finer points on that. I prefer to stand in front of the patient. It's a little bit different than what we typically do in the clinic, but I want to demonstrate manual therapy and then show that we can make a meaningful change in a very short period of time. So Jan does that at the end of the workshop. And then the next thing she does is she goes through, okay, who wants to ignore their pain by making more excuses? Who wants to alter their pain? Who wants to handle their pain? And she will go through a summary. And what she will do is this. It's called a summary close. but she will say, okay, so here's what happened. You saw our ad on Facebook, you saw our ad on Instagram, we were in your mailbox, or you saw us in a newspaper, you called into the clinic, you spoke with Megan, you came here, you listened to me talk about rotator cuff and shoulder problems for the last 45 minutes. You just said you wanted to handle your pain. You didn't want to make excuses. You didn't want to keep taking anti-inflammatories or pain pills or get an injection, and you're looking for help right now. So that's the beginning of the summary close, right? You're walking the person through how they got in the room. Now, I'm going to assume that you want help just because that's exactly what you said. So here's what we're going to do. We have 14 people in the room. Who's in severe pain and needs help right now? Those people raise their hand. Let's say 4 people raise their hand. Okay. So you are going to go with Megan and you're going to schedule an appointment. Here's what's going to happen during that appointment. And then Jan will explain what that appointment looks like. Those 4 people leave the room. Then what she will do is she will get to a point when the room is small enough. She will go around to every single person individually and she will say, okay, Mary, let's see what's going on with your shoulder. Okay, you have left, and she'll look at their worksheet and likely already knows a good bit of their information from not only phone calls before the event, but also if somebody shared in the beginning of the workshop. And then she will walk that person out and say, okay, Mary, let's get you scheduled. Here's what we're going to do. And then she walks back and she goes to the next person. Okay, Ted. Ted, what's going on? Okay, left shoulder pain that you've had going on for 3 years. Looks like you said you had a surgery in the past, and she is just having a conversation and constantly walking people out to schedule an appointment. Now, a finer point on that, a little bonus trick, if you can have a second person in the room answering questions while the presenter is walking people out to schedule, that is a huge bonus. And typically what we're doing is our more experienced, call them master presenters, those that are closing at a high rate. They are always training somebody. They are always bringing somebody along, and they're giving them small parts of the presentation until that person has the competency and confidence to be able to do the workshop themselves. So that is what the call to action looks like, the most successful we've ever seen. The great turnaround story for us was in Shrewsbury. Matt Conroy is the director there. Matt was struggling in the early days with his workshops, and then he turned around, went to Jan, we got him the recording. He and Jan had a few conversations. Matt implemented this same exact close to the end of his workshop, and then rattled off a few 100% close workshops himself. And Matt has a very tight process, great implementer of what I'm sharing with you here. That was big point number 1. You want to have a specific close. The other thing that I would recommend is don't practice for dollars in your close. So don't wait until you've spent weeks of emailing your patient list or a direct mail piece to your patient list or some sort of advertising spend before you practice the last 5 or 10 minutes. Right. So I want to, if it's me and it's my first time, or I'm bringing a clinician along to do the workshop their first time, we're going to practice that close until they can do it with their eyes closed. The second big point was a simple framework for engagement. We run an 8-step process right now in our workshops, fairly universal regardless of the topic. And here's what it is. Number 1 is we define what the workshop is or what the workshop is about. So if we're doing a rotator cuff workshop, we're going to define very simply in lay language what the rotator cuff is. And it will be something like this. Rotator cuff is 4 muscles that attach to your shoulder blade. Notice I didn't say scapula, and also your arm bone. And what they do is they move your shoulder, and I would demonstrate that. That's it. Very, very simple, straightforward, gets everybody on the same page. And again, we're using lay language. I didn't say humerus, I didn't say proximal humerus, or I didn't talk about the glenoid fossa or anything like that you and I would typically talk about as clinicians. I kept it very, very simple. So yeah, in the beginning, step number 1, you want to define it. Step number 2 is you want to tell them why they should be listening to you. If you've done your job and have done it well, by the time you walk in the room and people walk in the room, they should know who you are. That trust should be there already. Typically what I do at this point is I tell a story about why they should be listening to me. So for example, if I'm doing one on back pain, I talk about when I went through school, I was took advanced spine studies, and that was taught by somebody who, a professor that was a really good spine physical therapist. And then when I came out for 2 or 3 years, I worked for spine surgeons, and I implemented exactly what I did in college, and it wasn't working the best. And I draw it out. I draw smiley faces and sad faces and stuff like that about to represent the percentage of people and my best guess estimate of how well it was working. Right. And then one day I went home from school, went home from work, and my wife Stephanie was stuck in our laundry room on the floor, and she was pregnant with our second son, Quinn. And what had happened was she was pulling out jeans from the washer. Wet jeans can be a little tricky, and that load on her lower back sent her over the edge. She ended up having some SI issues. So she was crying, was stuck there for an hour and a half, couldn't get up off the floor. I helped her up. We're walking out to the living room, and I said, "Hey, what happened here?" And she shared, and I said, "Aren't you doing the exercises that I shared with you?" And she was like, "Well, and she stopped crying. She said, "I'm doing everything you told me to do. It's not working." And then the next thing she said was life-changing for me. She said, "You're a physical therapist. Figure this out." So I started getting into the research. This was maybe 2004-ish. Yeah, 2005. So eventually I found one of the researchers, somebody that was published a lot, was Richard Jackson with the Jackson Clinics down in Virginia. I went and took a course from him, and then it just opened up this whole new world of manual therapy and new treatment technology, what we used to call evidence-based practice, and started implementing that in the clinic, and was having these radical transformations of patients that was seeing already for 2 or 3, 4 weeks into their treatment plan, and they weren't sure if therapy was helping or not. They were going through, and all of a sudden I implement these new manual therapy techniques, and they're getting better really quick. Right. So I share that story, and now how that's essentially a requirement to be taught in most accredited programs. But I share this transformation of how I went through and why they should be listening to me. In that case, it's about back pain and sciatica. I have one for shoulder. I have one for every other topic that I've ever presented on. You should have a similar story. If you went to school and you earned a degree and you have a license, then I'm fairly sure you are more qualified to talk about the topic that you're presenting on than anybody else in the room. So that's step number 2. The next 3 are very straightforward. You need 3 big points, right? My points are typically what reproduces your pain, and then we go through, if it's a back pain workshop, it might be sitting, standing, walking, lifting, getting in and out of the car, rolling over in bed at night, sleeping. So I want the audience engaged on that point. The next thing is I talk about anytime we have a problem in life, there are 3 things we can do. We can ignore it. That typically sounds like excuses, right? I'm too old. I'm too young. My mom had a bad back. It's the weather. I had an injury when I was 4 and I'm never going to be the same again. It's some sort of excuse, right? Or I've tried everything already. So we go through that. That's ignore. Then the second thing we can do is alter. The third thing we can do is we can handle it. We can address the cause of the problems. I tell a story around that. You can adapt that accordingly for whatever your unique situation is. Ignore, alter, handle is the second big point. The third big point that I usually tell is I talk about the 4 most common causes of whatever it is, whatever we're talking about. So if I'm talking about back pain and sciatica, it might be herniated disc, stenosis and disc degeneration, and then SI joint pain might be my 3, right? You can adapt that to however you see fit. So we're now through the first 5 points. Point number 6 is here's what successful treatment looks like. 7 is the demo, and we will show them. And then 8 is our call to action, our close, where we invite them to schedule an appointment and see if the treatment services that we're offering are right for them. So that's our 8-step guideline. Very simple, very reproducible, whether we're doing pelvic floor, heel pain, hip pain, cervical issues and headaches, balance and dizziness, whatever it might be. That is the framework that we use repeatedly. The final big point that I want to leave you with is this. Before you walk in the room, that audience should have a really good idea of who you are. And here's how we do that. We call it indoctrination. I've heard other people calling it trust building sequence or nurture sequence, but I don't care what you call it, but this is the action and the result of that action. So we mentioned Samantha before. Let's say Samantha saw one of our ads on Facebook. She enters in her information and she registers for the rotator cuff and shoulder pain workshop. She then is going to speak to a member of our team. I used Megan, but it could be Ashley or Etzel or Timber, any member of our team, but she spoke with somebody at our clinic. Now, let's say she registered today and the workshop isn't until next week. So there's, I don't know, 7 to maybe 12 days between the time she registers and the time she actually attends the event. We can either do nothing, which I believe that is a mistake, or we can send her valuable information in the meantime. And by the way, if you're sending valuable information that you're also going to do at the workshop and you're somehow thinking that that ruins the workshop, that is not true. You can go through the same point, and the second time that the person hears it, it's going to sink in a little bit better. And they'll say, oh yeah, I remember watching this, right? Or I remember reading about this in your email. So what could we send during that time? We could send testimonials. We could send 5-star Google reviews of people who had that same problem that received our treatment services. We could send them valuable information, which is, in our case, that's what we do. So somebody who is within our sequence, they register for the event, we will send them anywhere from 3 to 6 emails with valuable content and valuable information before that event ever happens. And what we want to happen is when I walk in the room or the presenter walks in the room, they'll say, hey, I know you. You're the guy from the videos, right? Or you're the person who's sending me the emails, even though that is completely automated, right? So now they know, like, and trust us before we even walk into the room. That is another very simple thing that you can do to set yourself up for your best workshop ever. So there's a lot more that we could go into. Again, just want to recap those 3 big points. Number 1 is you want to have a clean and crisp, clear call to action. You want to offer an appointment. The second thing that you can do is create a simple framework for engagement. In this episode, I shared the 8 steps that we are running universally for our workshops, regardless of the diagnosis or the treatment that we're promoting. The third thing that you can do is set the audience up that they know, like, and trust you before you walk into the room, and that you're filling the gap between registration and the actual workshop. All right. So want to go to one more thing. Just got a text about this morning. What do we do here at Breakthrough? Us for providing a lot of information. We also offer software that helps with marketing. So marketing automation software for those of you that want to run your own ads. And this really handles reactivations and email campaigns, text campaigns, partner workshops, etc. The third thing that we do and that we're most likely best known for is we run ads for other practices, specifically to workshops. We also do it to appointments. We also do it to vouchers. But the majority of what we've built Breakthrough around is helping owners master workshops and then running ads for them to fill those workshops. Because yes, you can have a great framework, you can have a clean, crisp close, but it's much better to have 10 people in the room or 15, 20 people in the room than it is to have 1 or 2, right? So we also do that as well. What we'll do here is we will put in the show note a link if you are interested. When you are interested, just caught myself there eating. What you can do is you can click on that link, and our team that runs ads for other practices, they will run an area assessment just for you. So they'll take a look at your area, they'll take a look at the population. As when we're running ads for practices, it comes with area exclusivity. If another owner and I are in the same exact marketplace, we can't run for 2 practices because of the way online bidding works, especially with Meta, Facebook, Instagram. So it is an area exclusive offer, but the least that can happen is you can talk with my team. They can do an assessment for you, see what's available in your area, show you what the population looks like of people that are on the online social media platforms. And if you're ready to take your practice to the next level and start running on cold traffic advertising, that's what you can do. So click on the link and to schedule a time to talk with our team, and they'll be happy to walk you through, share some valuable information with you as well. The other thing that I'll say is that it's not for everybody. So running advertisements, and here's an example. So I would not turn on advertisements if I had a 3-week waiting list, right? That just doesn't make sense. So if you don't have a greater capacity to treat, or you're stuck hiring right now and you're already at full capacity and you have a 2-week waiting list and to get a new patient in, this probably isn't for you, at least right now. The other thing that I would say is does not work well if it's a single clinician. That solopreneur type practice, very easy to fill that single schedule. And now that owner is stuck with the challenge of hiring the second clinician. And it's a really big problem if they've never done it before. So in the best case scenarios, this works well for those that have the capacity to treat and also want to learn how to convert people from the cold market, the cold traffic audience, and they want a bigger, in the end, they want to serve a bigger area, bigger community of people. So a good rule of thumb is at least 3 or 4 full-time clinicians in the practice. That can include you, but you have a plan to treat more patients, leave a bigger impact in your area, and continue to grow. Again, you can click on that link and take advantage of the area assessment. Otherwise, hope you very much enjoyed the 3 things that I would do to have your best workshop ever, and I'll see you in the next episode.
How does your practice's profitability today compare to what it was back in 2019? Is it keeping pace with inflation? Hey, this is Chad Madden here. I want to introduce you to the Profitability Under Pressure program. This is a 90-day masterclass designed to help you build a robust financial system for your practice. Most owners aim to improve revenue per visit and enhance their bottom line. However, many are facing declining reimbursements and rising operational costs, making it challenging to maintain financial health. The Profitability Under Pressure program consolidates the best practices currently working for practice owners into one comprehensive system. This program will help you boost profit margins, reclaim your time, gain time freedom, and assist more people in your community and leave a bigger impact. You'll learn how to conduct a profit leak audit, create a profit plan, and use various levers to increase revenue. Additionally, you'll get a 90-day trial of our patient demand software and access to our exclusive Inside Circle community. Here you can connect with other like-minded practice owners who are navigating similar challenges and finding solutions. Don't just take our word for it. Hear from owners like Lance Gross, who added $1.1 million to his bottom line, Peg Gray, who got her finances under control, and Jeff Gersh, who saved time with our cheat sheet for increasing profitability. Don't miss this opportunity. Apply today for the Profitability Under Pressure program and start increasing your profits by $10,000 or more within just 90 days of implementation, guaranteed. Secure a more stable financial future for your practice. Click below and apply now to join the ranks of successful physical therapy private practice owners who transform their businesses with our program. Apply today.